Welcome everyone to today's episode of the Dough Doctor. I'm your host and baking expert, Chef Colette. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you to you too. I have a great show planned for us today. We have a couple questions to get to. And as always, please drop your baking questions in the comments below. Let us know where you're logging on from. And what did you bake that was fabulous this week? Or it doesn't need to be fabulous. Just tell us about your baking adventures from the week. Or if you didn't have any time to bake, what are you planning to bake this weekend? For demo, I'm interrupting our tart series. We'll get back to that next week. And we're gonna cover making chocolate-covered strawberries for Mother's Day. Chocolate-covered strawberries are a classic for Mother's Day. I think I personally have dipped thousands over the years. Well, maybe not thousands, but definitely hundreds and hundreds of them when working in luxury hotels and fine dining on Mother's Day. By the way, hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And I see Patty, I see JG111, Life of Irony, and welcome, Brooklyn. Oh, the Real Poppy One is making my Danish recipe from Danish from Scratch, my Danish craftsy class. Ooh, that is a really, how can I say this? I'm really happy with that Danish recipe. I love the way it turned out and it gets rave reviews. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to message me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can in that Danish process. So yeah, that's super, super fun. That was a wonderful class to put together. I loved creating that Danish class for Craftsy. If you ever get an itch to make Danish pastry, please look up that class. Danish is a little bit different than croissant in that Danish dough is richer, it has eggs, it has a little bit more sugar, and it has spices in it like cardamom and a little bit of cinnamon sometimes. So that's the difference between Danish and croissant. See, I just go off on a tangent because I really, really love these doughs so much. Oh, great. Life of Irony is reporting in. She has made pizza dough and strawberry tart tomorrow. And I have to report, I saw some really beautiful strawberry tarts come in, and I really appreciate you guys tagging me in my post, in your post, tagging me in your posts. Oh my goodness, I gotta calm down. The Danish class just got me going. It was Benelli 9231 made a gorgeous strawberry tart, and another one came in. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I go through so many. The name will come to me. The name of our baker will come to me. See, I didn't write it down. So let's get to the business of our questions, and my memory will work back on the name of our baker who produced another beautiful strawberry tart. So I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying it. I did share it with my neighbors and it got rave reviews. I really, I've been making it off and on for years, that cream cheese tart, and it's always great to get fresh feedback on it. The one thing I will say, and this was something Benelli and 9231 and I were knocking back and forth, and it influenced how I wrote the recipe. What you want to do with a tart where the tart shell is raw and you're adding the filling, what can happen is a little bit of underbake. We don't get the crispness that we get when we blind bake or par bake the dough. So what we want to do is preheat a baking sheet, and once we fill our tart, put the tart on that hot baking sheet. Exactly how we talked about last fall when we were doing our deep dive into pies. Remember that? And I told you guys the old trick that I used of, we always want to bake our pies and tarts supported on a baking tray. That's really important for a lot of reasons. We want to catch drips. We also want support for when we're moving product in and out of the oven. Just think, for example, if you're baking pies and maybe you're doing a bunch to take to parties and you're using the disposable aluminum pie pans, well, they're really kind of wobbly when you're trying to get that product out of the oven. So it's really important that we have, a sense of support and a sense of ease when we are removing our, pies, tarts, and that also goes for our cakes as well. We always want to be supported by a baking tray. But if you're looking for a crisp crust or just a little bit more heat, then preheat, in the case, especially if we're working with raw dough, and we wouldn't do this for blind baking, but if we're completely baking start to finish raw dough and raw filling, then starting with a preheated baking tray really makes a difference. Oh yeah, life of irony, I'll come up with a hashtag, or I will ask my amazing social media manager to come up with a great hashtag for us so that we can all see our bakes. Awesome. Okay, so let's get to the questions. I do have a couple things that we had pins in. Our baker Cyrus sent in a recipe. It was a coconut quick bread that was giving him some problems, and he sent it to me to analyze. Well, it's in volume, and it gave me the idea that maybe if you're interested, bakers, I would host a Zoom class where I could teach you how to convert volume recipes to metric so that you could take the recipes that you have in cups, convert them to grams, use your scales for 100% better accuracy. So Cyrus, if you're watching, I have not forgotten your coconut bread, but I need to get that recipe in grams to analyze it to see what's going wrong, because bakers, once we get the recipe in grams, we can see what the baker's percentages are, and then all will be revealed. So Cyrus, I did not forget. I'm working on it, okay? Oh, thank you. I see comments about Craftsy classes. I'm so grateful. Thanks you guys so much for enrolling in my Craftsy classes. All right, so I just wanted Cyrus, I didn't want him to think that I had forgotten him. The other question, which if memory serves me correctly, and I'd like to think it does, came from JGF111, and it was about the chocolate paste. And this question was Craftsy originated. There's a wonderful chocolate cake class on Craftsy taught by a really incredible pastry chef. And that in one of the frosting recipes, he mentions chocolate paste. And it might as well be a unicorn for us as home bakers because it's a commercial product that's essentially Nutella without the hazelnut. So, and I had an extremely credible DIY Nutella recipe from a posh Jean-Marie Aubouin class from back in the mid-2010s. And wouldn't you know, I think I Marie Kondo'd that sucker. So I need, again, it is a commercial product, but we can DIY it. We're putting a pin one more week. I don't like to go too long on questions. I like to nip them in the bud and get them answered for you guys, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I tried to find the chef and ask him directly, but I haven't had any luck with that. So we'll just figure it out ourselves because we're so smart, right? Yes, we are. Okay, So that was the chocolate paste and our Baker Cyrus's coconut recipe. All right, the next question came from Benelli9231, and she said she was making the apple pie that we made back in the fall, and that is on the website at bakingwithcolette.com under recipes and blog posts. And that apple pie came from my grandmother's baking book when she went to cooking school in the 40s and 50s in Chicago. And so that's I'm so happy that that recipe dropped into my life very unexpectedly. Of course, there's a story around that one. And then I'm able to share it with you guys. So Benelli9231's question was, the recipe calls for golden delicious apples. What other apples that are available right now can be used? Well, the number one most consistent apple in the US that's always in the market, Granny Smiths. Granny Smiths are a great all-purpose baking apple. They always have good flavor. They may not have the subtle nuances of flavor like when we get fall varieties of apples, but they're a great workhorse apple. There are two others that consistently keep appearing in the market, and that would be Braeburn and Honeycrisp. Golden Delicious can be a little soft off-season, so I tend to stay away from Golden Delicious except in the fall. Now, a little factoid for you bakers. Maybe someone is watching from France, but and they'll be like, yep, this is true. In France, Golden Delicious apples are very prized for their baking. And so if you read French cookbooks, they'll often talk about Golden Delicious apples. In Italy, the apple that gets everybody going, I know we're going around the world here, is, I'm going to say this wrong, so I apologize. If Leo or Chef Daniel are watching, or anybody from Italy, I want to say Rinette, R-I-N-E-T-T-E. Anyway, I'm sure I mauled that one. I apologize. But that's your apple lesson for today. Now I challenge you bakers, if you get the idea to make an apple pie in spring, how about following the recipe, but at the end of cooking the apples, throw in maybe a half pint of washed, quartered strawberries. Give it a little bit of a spring twist. An apple strawberry pie is absolutely yummy. So I encourage maybe Benelli9231, and then that's an idea for you for your apple pie. And then post those, tag me in the photo so we can talk about it. And I do promise I've got high expectations. We've already made one leap into a better kitchen. The next leap for the DoughDr will be a studio where I can really actually share the wonderful photos you send me. All right? So fingers crossed, set the intention, it's gonna happen. So those were our two, I'm just checking here, So those were the main questions for this week. I'm gonna just check and see. No, I don't see any new questions in the comments below, but if you have them, please add them. And I'm really heartened that you guys are excited about maybe doing a Zoom class. It would be limited to, I think my Zoom handles like 75 people, but we could go through and I could really explain to you the steps to converting your recipes from volumes to grams. Because remember that the better we bake, the more we bake. That's just human nature. I know I'm that way. And I know you guys are too. And weighing the ingredients is the way to go. Ha! No pun intended. I didn't mean that. All right, let's talk strawberries. So the main lesson today for today's episode is about what chocolate to use when you want to dip strawberries. And I don't know when chocolate covered strawberries became a Mother's Day thing exactly. I just know that in my pastry cook, line cook, banquet chef career, I dipped a fair amount of strawberries. I also know this for a fact. We never need to temper chocolate to dip strawberries. In fact, it's a waste. It's very time consuming, and we really want to use coating chocolate, all right? The coating chocolate will be labeled chocolate wafers. Ghirardelli makes it, DoughDr makes it, and then for those of you in the audience who either went to Cordon Bleu or taught at Cordon Bleu, there's a coating chocolate called Bakels, and this I actually found this at a store here in Los Angeles. When the blog post that's going to accompany this episode will have chocolate resources or chocolate coating resources like crazy. And I wanted to do it this week so you'd have plenty of time to source your chocolate. I do have extra chocolate. If you like, you can get it from me. Just message me and let me know, okay? So Ghirardelli, DoughDr, there's also a brand available on Amazon called Merkins. Now, why are we not using, why are we not using our regular chocolate? What's wrong with this? This is Trader Joe's Pound Plus. This is for 54% cacao. So that means it's got cocoa mass and cocoa butter in it. Why not just melt it? And oh my God, if you go on the internet, it's crazy, and look up coating or dipping things in chocolate, you get a lot of, it's a slippery slope. On the Hershey's website, they tell you you can melt chips and add vegetable shortening and get a credible result. That's gonna be kind of iffy. You really wanna source the chocolate wafers or coating chocolate. The cocoa butter, with something like strawberries that have a high water content, they're gonna fight the chocolate and the high water content, even with the temper, putting the chocolate back in temper, because the thing of it is, it's in temper right now, but once we melt it, and I know it's backward because it's Instagram, once we melt it, we take it out of temper and we have to put it back in temper. With coating chocolate, it hardens with strength, snap, and shine just by dipping and putting it in the refrigerator, and it stays that way in case you have to take your beautiful strawberries to a family member or friend's house for a lovely Mother's Day brunch, or you're meeting family and friends at the restaurant, you want to take a lovely box for grandma or mom or whatever, all right? This is also super fun to do with kids. Kids can dip strawberries like crazy. It's really, really a fun activity. Not when you have to do 1,500 of them, but it's really fun when you're just doing, maybe a couple dozen or maybe a dozen. So chocolate is paramount. Now, before I start dipping and talking about melting chocolate, I wanted to talk about the difference. Why these work? Why does this work? And this is the Ghirardelli white melting wafers. And I was really happy because one of our bakers was like, please white chocolate, please white chocolate. I found it. So Ghirardelli and the Bakels and the Merkins on Amazon, they all come in the white chocolate variety. So what happens is the cocoa butter is taken out. It's 86, out of here, cocoa butter, because it causes troubles when we're dipping strawberries. And what they do is they put vegetable fat in place of the cocoa butter. And then there's a few emulsifiers that had names like huge long names I can't even pronounce, also added to it. Just normal candy making stuff, coating stuff, nothing sinister. This is totally fine. It's actually kind of good. But anyway, and it works. It's like magic. And bakers, if we could all kind of teleport to the most luxurious pastry shops, well, the pastry shops aren't luxurious, but the hotels they're in, like 5-star, right? Every pastry chef worth their salt in a big shop has a bucket of this always melted, well, usually the dark chocolate variety, because you just can't live without it in a big pastry kitchen. You can't always be tempering chocolate. It's just too much when you're busy and you're, doing what you need to do. Also, oil-based color, you can tint the candy melts with oil-based colors, and you can flavor them like the Loran candy oils. You can look at LoranOils.com, and you have to be, you want to be modest. You don't want to add a ton of flavor, but you can flavor and color these. And I've had not bad luck with just a whisper of gel color as well. But again, that's adding more water. And here's the thing with chocolate. In the manufacture of chocolate, all the water's removed, right? All of it. Which is why when we're melting chocolate, if we get water in it, it seizes up. Right? Because once that water's reintroduced, on the molecular level, the chocolate reverts to its original form, and that is a mess. All right, so that's why the strawberries with their high water content can't handle regular chocolate, and why this coating chocolate is such a miracle. I'm gonna start with the dark chocolate, and I have a few strawberries already done in the fridge, so to show you what they look like. But the best way to melt any kind of chocolate is dry heat. If you have a microwave, use it. And what you want to do is 30-second intervals, and every recipe says high heat. But here's the truth, bakers. Your microwave, unless you've managed to find the manual and mess with the settings, it's going to default to high heat. So, 30 seconds. Now, what I would like you to avoid are candy melts. They're really fine for fun cake decorating, and there's a lot of creative uses for candy melts, but they don't taste good. So I want you to avoid them for dipping your strawberries. Now I had already melted this, so we're just blasting it again. And you just want it fluid. And for those of you who work with chocolate a lot, the same rules apply. You want to always scrape down the side. And if you happen to have one of those cute little Wilton chocolate melters, you can use that for chocolate wafers. It's designed for candy melts, for dipping cake pops. Oh, BTW, this is awesome for cake pops. And for those of you who make cake pops, you're probably already like, Jeff, we knew that. So chocolate wafers. The brand names in the supermarkets, Ghirardelli and Guittard. The only one that has white chocolate is Ghirardelli. Okay, now I'm gonna get the berries. And the second part of this whole thing are how to prepare your strawberries. And I absolutely hit the mother lode. I got, look, stem strawberries. Aren't these gorgeous? My heart stopped. Well, actually, no, I had a hunch. When I was going through the farmer's market here in Los Angeles, I knew that if I just held on long enough, I would find them. And I did. There they are. So, but if you can't find stem strawberries, it's totally fine. There's gorgeous strawberries in the market. This is strawberry time right now. So what you want to do is you want to wash them. Line a baking tray with paper towels. So you want to wash them because they grow low to the ground and they can be dusty. So wash them like 2-3 hours before you want to dip them. Not the night before, because the more we want to shorten the time that we expose the strawberries to water, because if they sit too long after they've been washed, even in the fridge, the surface will begin to break down and they'll start to get soggy. So a couple hours before dipping, what you want to do is you want to wash, lay them out on paper towel, cover them with paper towel, put them in the refrigerator, okay? And then have space in the, it does kind of take over the refrigerator a little bit. And then what we're going to do, here's some finished ones here that I'm going to garnish. It just sets up really quickly and beautifully. This coat, the chocolate wafers are a miracle. Really, really great. Let me just move my notes. And you can really get creative with this stuff. All right, so I have my dark chocolate here. There's a couple things. So you want to get yourself where you've got, you know, I taught production baking forever at Le Cordon Bleu. And so I always try to think of like what I used to preach about when I did that. And so you want to get yourself set up. So you've got your berries, and you always need, like, it gets messy. If you want to wear gloves, you can wear gloves. And I recommend that, especially as you start to move your strawberries around. But if you have impeccably clean hands, and bakers, I know you do, you're gonna berries, dip, drop. Berries, dip, drop. Berries, dip, drop. So after they're bone dry now, they look great. And if you want, you can kind of bring the leaves up a little bit, you know, just kind of shape them. And then you're gonna dip. And if you have, I did not have really great tall vessels, but that's all right, the bowls work, and you can tilt the bowl. And you're gonna just kind of twirl the berry, and then you're gonna drop it on the parchment paper. And if the excess is minimal, there's no need to shift the berry on the parchment paper. So that's our goal, is not to have a lot of excess. And we usually want to leave some of the red. So I dip and I twirl, 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 twirl. You're going to hold the leaves if you don't have the stem. Okay. And then I'll do one in white chocolate, which is fun. Very, very pretty. You can also tuxedo them, which is fun. Gotta make sure I don't have questions. I was like totally, absolutely in the zone of dipping these berries. So twirl and then drop. So they're looking good. You can double dip if you like. So I've got 2 more to do. I have a huge thank you to everyone who helped me get this beautiful kitchen. So I'm going to give them chocolate covered strawberries this afternoon. So this all just worked out perfectly. All right, one more. Do one more white chocolate one, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about garnishing, And then I'm going to let you get back to your own baking this afternoon. Let us know what you have on deck. I know we have pizza and a strawberry tart. All right, great. So what you can do, and you know, and there's websites for information. There's a company called Sherry's Berries, and this person has made an empire of chocolate covered strawberries. So you can get a lot of inspiration. Also remember, you can add a little bit of color, a little bit of gel color. I know we don't always have the oil-based colors hanging around, but not supermarket liquid watery food color. That's just for Easter eggs, but instead like a little bit of Wilton gel color or AmeriColor gel color or Chef Master gel color. Those are the big 3 brands. And just a tiny bit to get a little bit of shading. Now the last thing I want to show you, if you have sprinkles, if you have jimmies, if you have fun stuff, you know, I did before the move, you can, while they're still wet, you can decorate them. And then you can also, for those of you who can make cornets, you can make a cornet and you can stripe them. And if you don't want to make a cornet, but maybe you do a lot of cake decorating, you can put your chocolate in a small piping bag. And if you don't have a small piping bag, no problem. A small Ziploc bag will double beautifully as a piping bag. You just put the chocolate in here, and actually, how about I do that? I got all this fancy stuff, but let's be real, and I'm going to put a little white chocolate in this Ziploc bag, and I'm going to show you how to stripe. And then next week, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to tease next week's show, in which we're going to cover classic pâte sucrée. Got to get myself back in frame. It's a narrow window, but that's okay. Let me see, any questions? Yes, you have to. La Cucinera Hermosa. You must make chocolate. You've got strawberry. Not that their jam is wonderful. And bakers, I moved the canner, so I will be posting about jam this summer because I have vowed after that impromptu move that I will use everything I own because it was just so painful moving it. Benelli is asking, what can I do to prevent the chocolate from falling off the strawberries when you bite into it? Well, that should happen less with the coating chocolate. But when we dip in tempered chocolate, hi Michelle, when we dip in tempered chocolate, we tend to really lose the whole shell because it's hanging by a thread. I know they can be kind of messy to eat, but that's a great question. Coating chocolate wafers, chocolate wafers, chocolate wafers. Oh my goodness. Okay, Ziploc is not my friend. So my bags don't have a good point, but that's okay. I'm gonna make, it's a make it work moment. Where's Tim Gunn, right? When you need him. So I'm just gonna trim a little bit right here. And I've set up my kitchen bakers, so my tools are right underneath me. So exciting. And I did post on Friday some kitchen transformation, which was, I hope, inspiring. All right, so now, just using this, you always want to kind of do a test. So I'm going to see what happens back in the bowl. Oh yeah, that works. Ooh, there we go. So then just stripe. Just make sure whenever you stripe, that you are literally going off the product to the other side. Just like that. I'm going to do one more so you can see, because I feel like I'm not in camera the way I should be. Again, just a Ziploc bag, nothing. I have everything here, cornets and piping bags, but we can achieve this just like this. And before we go, would you guys like to see the tuxedo? I bet you would. So what I'm gonna do, since I have the Ziploc this, I'm gonna take one of the white chocolate. This is kind of a pain when you have 1,500 of them to do. You're not quite loving life. But what we do to emulate the tuxedo jacket is just V-dip. So that it looks like that. And then pipe 3 little chocolate buttons. And that's it. Let's do a white chocolate one. And then I'll let you go. And thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back next, oh, you know what? I can do it. We can always make it work, bakers. I'll be back next week, so make sure to load up the comments or message me with your baking questions, and then be ready to make pâte sucrée. I will send a grocery list and a recipe early. Let's see if we can use this to get the buttons. Can I do this? There's 1. Woo, little messy. 2. And maybe 1 up top. Well, you guys will be neater because you won't be live. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have baking friends, please tell them about the DoughDr and encourage them to watch the show as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week right here in the new kitchen at noon Pacific. Please tag me in your strawberry photos and all your beautiful bakes. Bye!